Okay, so now I want to talk about the second half of the final day of the fourth convening of the Four Winds. There will be a convening next year, the fifth convening. That will be the last of the series, and that will be by invitation only, and that will include people who have been to multiple. So I won't be going to that one, but I'll be kept informed about it, and I'm excited about that and grateful for that. It was a serious afternoon, and it really kind of connected how all of this is connected. That the abuse that people have is because they're no longer connected to the land. That the lack of power is because they're no longer connected to the land. And that when you connect people to the land, they might be houseless, but they're not homeless. And that's kind of the phrase that you heard from indigenous people all the time. I'm not homeless. This North America is my home, and I'm the only group that can say that. Okay. The other thing they kept saying was that their favorite year was 1441. Anyway, so the first talk, or I should say that the whole talk, the whole session was on the rights of nature, the rights of rivers, and other movements that were connected. Anyway, being connected to the land solves a whole bunch of problems. And they talked about specific problems. There was a young person who was very eclectic. She had lots of different projects going that was about her culture and empowering. But one of the things is that she had gone to Antarctica, and she was in this scientific group, and she was the token artist, the token indigenous person. I shouldn't say token. She was the only one of that group. And I always think that there's multiple ways of making sense of the universe. Science is one, religion is another, philosophy is another, and art is another. And having the artists and the scientists together, to me, makes a whole lot of sense if you're trying to take this knowledge that you're learning and making it available to a larger group. And so what she learned in Antarctica is that the water that comes from there provides the majority of fresh water for South America and North America. It goes up there, but because of the changes in currents and heating and melting, it's being contaminated by blending with salt water, which hadn't been happening. In the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, they had a summit on the Amazon, and they kept referring to the Amazon as the lungs of the planet. If we lose the Amazon, we're going to lose oxygen. Well, here, I think that the analogy would be that Antarctica is the heart of Earth, and it pumps blood in the form of water. And if we lose Antarctica, then we lose life here as well. And so she was really good at explaining that and doing art for it. And a lot of her artwork ended up supporting non-for-profit causes for indigenous as well. And then there was an artist who she and her partner really addressed the issue of missing and murdered indigenous women. Now, a prior speaker talked about missing and murdered indigenous women and children, but said that they've changed the phrase. Not the focus, but they call it missing and murdered indigenous people, because they also realize that it's in smaller numbers, but there's also a core group of boys and men who are also the victims of this. And so this artist goes around and makes these red tents that people for this movement. You know, you see the red dresses, you see the red dresses with the hands or hearts on there that are really kind of a cry out to, we need to do something for these missing and murdered women and children. And you see the women with the red paint of a hand over their mouth. And so art is powerful in sending it out. Well, she has these red tents that address that, but they're also places of healing. And they take these all over the place. They leave them in different places. There's a large number of them now created. She has artwork related to it. And And she's kind of a traveling evangelist about bringing awareness to this issue. So while we're hearing this, all of a sudden everybody looks up, and the biggest eagle I have ever seen, I've seen lots of eagles now, flew over us, I think 3 times, and made its little noise. You keep thinking it's going to roar like a lion, but it doesn't. But it was majestic, and it was unifying, and people gave it their own meaning. And so some could think it's a coincidence, but I don't think anybody in that group thought it was a coincidence at all. And then as they were saying their thank yous, as the leaders were thanking everybody who came, and the speakers, and they were handing out gifts to the speakers, it was brought to the attention of everybody that the whole time we were there, there was a participant that was carrying with her the photograph of her son, who was a teenager who has been missing for, I think, 4 years. And so she was asked to stand up, hold the picture up, and 4 times in a loud voice say his name. And she's saying it in 4 times for the 4 winds. And in the process, she's acknowledging, so he might be missing, but he is not forgetting. My son's not forgotten to me or to the community, the larger community. In this case, not just the North or South Ponca Nation, but the Ponca people, right? And the ancestors are on the hill behind us. So his name's being proclaimed to all of them. And she's doing this, and the tears are pouring down her face. I don't think anybody was untouched. It was a really powerful moment. And then afterwards, there was it was just lots of affirmation and caring and hugging afterwards. And I just thought, this reminded me of the first day that I was driving into Santee Reservation, and there were the people in the community doing the memorial service. And the value of, we can't stop bad things from happening, but we can stop people having to suffer in isolation. We can be with them. So that was really powerful. And then it didn't end there. It ended with the gratitude and people talking about what they're going to take with them. And they were commissioned to not go back and quietly talk about the issues, but to go back and raise some hell, because Earth needs us to respond now and powerfully. And so that was it. We were done. Then they took the water that had been polluted, and they went to the creek that never freezes. It's called that because the creek never freezes. And then that water is filtered through the earth and the other water, and then connects to the Missouri. I didn't go to that part. What I did do is drive up the road and go to the Ponca tribal buffalo herd. And they don't say bison, they say buffalo. So buffalo herd. And this buffalo herd started 20 years ago with 14 buffalo, and they're now at 350, and they're expecting 20 more calves. And I don't have any good pictures, because in this case, you couldn't get out of the car. These country roads have no shoulders, and they're very narrow, and you want to not block anybody or get hit. But that's okay. Just to see them up on the hill, and they turned around, they looked at me, and they watched me, and said, "Oh, look at that human there." It was good to see that reconnection, because the buffalo is also one of those foundational keystone species that changes the earth underneath it, and in the process feeds insects and birds and reptiles and other predators that are smaller. And so that was powerful.
Very beautiful and sacred place. I don't know how much more you can say, in that connection to the land, what's going on here. So we're engaged in land-based education as such. Then I do all the activist work, everything you could think of. I feel like I've done it. But in this kind of work, we're also talking about defending the land. But what does that really mean? We're defending our people, right? and everything else that goes along with the land and people, our ceremonies, and all our relatives. So, as such, again, in ceremony, I'm engaged in all of these different things just to help, again, our people, and just to help in the healing process, because all the work I do is centered around healing. So currently, I do serve as program coordinator for Healing Ribbons, and this organization is based in Omaha, and it is focused on healing for Indigenous women and Two-Spirit people. But there's a lot more behind it. So I may be doing, helping and leading classes and so on and so forth. But again, I'm doing all kinds of other work centered around healing. And for the first time, I feel like I'm in a position where I'm able to utilize all my gifts to do this work. I feel like I've been waiting for this kind of job all my life that allows me to do this. So I feel very, very blessed to be able to carry out such work. And as we know, most of us I know that are here, we've done all the MMIW, MMIP work as well, in addition to everything else we do. I could say that I'm sure the other women that are here are probably just as busy, if not busier than me. And we're all doing the same, similar things, maybe just a little bit different here and there, but that's what I want to say. When I'm focused on our people, I really am focused on our people. Like 24/7. I'm on call, you name it, and I get calls or I get messages all the time. Renee, can you help us do this? Renee, would you come over here? On, and I'm sure that's the same with all of us again. But it's what I committed myself to doing. Serving our people. That commitment is a lifetime commitment. It's not something that's just 9 to 5 or I'm going to do this until I retire. I don't know what the heck that looks like, retirement. I'm like, I don't think that's ever going to happen for me. It's just how it is. So, healing, protection, defending, however you want to look at it. I feel that being called to do this work, I was sent here by Creator to help in the restoration of our ways of life. I knew that since I was a little girl. I just didn't know how to go about doing it. So it took me my lifetime to find all my teachers and to begin to learn.
Yeah, if you look in the program, it actually says Great Plains Action Society. That's my name this weekend.
I knew I was inviting a representative.
Yeah, I know. I've loved it though because everybody keeps calling me that. I love it. Actually, I really do love it because I am here to represent a whole group of people, not just myself. Tansi, Mio, Kikikipao, hello, good morning. My name is Sikowis Nobiss, and I'm the Executive Director of Great Plains Action Society. And I want to say, firstly, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much to everybody who organized this absolutely beautiful event. Oh man, I wish all events could be out in spaces like this. It's very healthy. It's, you don't feel the same kind of fatigue that you do going to other conferences. So thank you very much. And for the beautiful food, to the people that made the beautiful food, thank you for that. I'm a First Nation. I'm from the George Gordon. I'm a citizen of the George Gordon, Plains Cree Saulteaux First Nation in Saskatchewan. I grew up in Winnipeg. We're not too far from there. I jokingly call Winnipeg like the resiest city on Turtle Island. We've got 20% Native people live there. 20% of the population in Winnipeg is Native. My family at George Gordon is from the Pratt and the Blind families, and my grandfather's last name is Nobiss and connected to Long Plain, and he's Saulteaux. And I've been living in Iowa City for 20 years now. Actually, this year's 20 years. And became a citizen of the U.S. in 2023. And I don't know why I did that now, but but I never considered myself citizens of these countries anyway. So it does make it easier to do my work, though. I do feel safer, I'll tell you that. So I looked at the description of why I was brought here today to speak. And actually, it's a pretty, it seems really straightforward, but it is a lot to try to, I guess, put together. But I'm going to start by just saying this thing here, because everybody here knows already. I don't want to preach to the choir. Everybody here already knows about the missing and murdered Indigenous relatives crisis, and I don't think I need to throw statistics at you or tell you more information about it. So I just want to talk about largely like a lot of solutions and ways of thinking about this in terms of connection to land, because that's what I think that this panel is trying to get at, right? So, what this panel mentions is when you look at the list, right? It's like groups of men. That's where these problems arise, right? It arises from when groups of men get together, and what happens, when they're doing their thing, whatever that thing is, right? It could be building a pipeline, it could be mining, anything in the extractive industry, right? Construction, but there's also sporting events. I know there's people here that I've been to Minnesota with to protest the Super Bowl, for instance, right? There's so much sex trafficking that goes on at the Super Bowl. I see some of you in the audience. And don't forget hunting season. That was eye-opening for me. We did a panel on CO2 pipelines a few years ago, and one of the wonderful, and I'm forgetting her name right now, and I feel really bad about this, but one of the wonderful women that came on who runs a shelter for Indigenous women that have, are experiencing domestic violence. She talked about hunting season, and like I had never thought about that, right? And so basically, wherever you get groups of men together, you're going to get violence towards people. Of course, there's a lot of violence towards women and girls, right? But let's not forget, there's also violence towards our men and boys too, right? That's why at Great Plains Action Society, we like to call it MMIR, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives, because we want to be inclusive as well with our trans relatives, with our two-spirit relatives, with our LGBTQ relatives, and our boys and our men, who, in some cases, actually, in some places of the country, have higher rates of going missing. Here in Nebraska, the highest rate of missing people in terms of Indigenous people right now are teenage boys. So, I just want to say that, we like to be inclusive for that reason. And not saying that we need to not recognize that there are high rates of violence for women and girls. And then I just wanted to talk about, how we connect what's happening to the land and what's happening to the people, which is pretty obvious, right? Because as Indigenous people, we understand that people are connected to the land are connected to the people. What you do to each other, you're doing to the other, right? And that was a tactic when the settler invaders first came here. It was to separate. It was to minimize the role of women, of the feminine, to take that away, to take the matriarchy away. And that was intentional, of course, because the mother is always at the heart of the family. The mother will always make sure that everybody is taken care of. The mother will always be sure that there's equity within the family and within the community. And let's just be honest, right? Indigenous women are pretty badass and very tenacious, and they will get stuff done no matter what, while they have a little kid strapped to their leg or their back, So that was intentional. And so when I talk about land back and fighting CO2 pipelines, or fighting our oil pipelines or coal plants or whatever any of the stuff entails. I often like to talk about rematriation. I don't know if, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the word. I don't know if you've thought much about it. It doesn't have a very defined definition yet, but I like to define it as it is the reestablishment of sacred sites, of important places of like native plants and the animals and all those things, right? It's about land back as well, right? But very importantly, and this is why this is so important to me, it's reestablishing, it's giving power back to the matriarchy. And that is so important to this process of fighting for the land and fighting for getting it back.
So Tanse Kape Wawasak Nisigasu Nianahe Square Coakatu Sekochinia. So hello and how are you? My name is Comes Lightning and my English name is Danny Keeler. I'm a Plains Cree woman from Coakatoos First Nations on Treaty 4 territory in the country known as Canada. Cousin! Yes, my cousin over there. My dad's from Gordon's. So we're cousins.
Happy accident.
Long man.
Okay.
Come from the long man's over there. In Sear. Sear.
Sear.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I've come a long way. Me and my family, I brought my mom, my brother, and my sister with me, and we drove, I think, 14 hours. The majority of extraction that happens up in Canada is on First Nations communities. It's always the Indigenous communities that are affected by it, and I know that's true all over the world. So I do a lot of things. First and foremost, I'm an Indigenous artist. I share my life experiences as an Indigenous person through my art, and I also share stories of other people, and I get commissioned to share stories of their home or whoever they are, what they want to represent. So I'm a painter, but I'm a mixed media artist, so I do paintings and I do traditional beadwork on top of my paintings through my canvas. So it gives them a spirit. It makes my paintings come alive. And when you see them in person, it's unlike anything that you've ever seen before. I always get told that there's a wow factor there. And I think it's because of that beadwork. I incorporate my traditions into the artwork. And the way that I was taught with beading is that every bead has a spirit. And so when you are creating something, that you have to have good thoughts, good deeds, good intentions. And every bead tacked down is a prayer set. So a lot of prayers and spirituality go into my artworks. And I created an art exhibit a few years ago about my experience as an Indigenous woman. It was my healing journey. So from pre-colonization all the way up until colonization and the implementation of the Indian Act and the residential schools up in Canada and the intergenerational trauma that it had on my people, and then me finding my identity again and wanting to reclaim my Indigenous identity and learn my language and learn my heritage and my cultures, and go on into healing so we can go back into that space of harmony where we started out pre-colonization. I am a founding member of Antarctic Rights. So it's made up of people all over the world, mainly scientists, and then there's me. I was the first First Nations person from Canada to be a participant of the 2041 Foundation, where I went down to Antarctica to learn about climate science, leadership skills, and to work with people around the world to advocate for Antarctica. And when I was down there, I learned that she is the keystone to the entire world. So I'm really passionate about keystones and species and ecosystems. And our water is life. 70% of our world's drinking water comes from Antarctica. The way that the water system works, it all comes from the south and it moves all the way up and it trickles down, and that's how the water works, the concurrence. And what's happening is the ice is melting, which holds a lot of that water. and it's mixing in with the salt water, and they cannot coexist together. Like, they're always separate. So that's buggering up the concurrent system. So our water will stop traveling up to the north, and we won't have clean drinking water anymore. So I'm really passionate about Antarctica and why she's so important. And now I'm a founding member of Antarctic Rights, and it stems from the Global Alliance of the Rights of Nature. It stems from the rights of nature. And I am one of 2 Indigenous people who is a founding member. And so now I am trying to develop an Indigenous council, get more Indigenous representation within the group to help with advice, our inherent knowledge, everything like that. It's super important to have Indigenous representation in all spaces, and I really feel that we really need this in Antarctica, but Antarctic Rights, to do it in a good way, a meaningful way, and the right way.
My name is Teyana Viscarra, and I say Helka from the territory I live in as a guest on Kumeyaay territory, came out from Southern California. My people are Piro Tiwa Pueblo people out of New Mexico, and Apache out of Arizona, and European. Yes, everything that we're experiencing is rooted in settler colonialism, and we know that with the desecration of the desecration of Native women's bodies is directly coincide with what happens in the conquest of Native lands. It's every aspect of our being. So for us in our work, it's critical that we do a couple things. We confront the injustices. We confront this genocide that's happening through exposing the lies and the lies of the beginning of this nation. And so in our work, we started out as water protectors, and our work took us on this journey to protect the water, defend the land. In each thing, what we don't want to do and what can be dangerous is building these silos where we think the way that we're going to resolve this is just one way, in the way that we've been called. No, we're just a teeny little speck, and it's the way the Creator has called us into contribution to do this work. For Norm and I, we organize prayer runs. We have the Red Teepee Healing Prayer, where we carry the red teepee around the territory of Turtle Island. We gift the teepee to community. She's painted red. And then out of that prayer comes ceremony, where the family gathers around and they're able to offer their handprint of white paint onto that, and that becomes a living memorial. That's one way that the art of who we are becomes living to create healing. So we have